All right, so last week, if you weren't here, we started the first part of this series called Across the Street, and today we're going to go into Around the World. Everyone say Around the World. And I shared last week on how this whole thing of starting a church transpired. It was just Lori and I, and it was just a handful of individuals. And I shared with you, and you can go into our app or on our website, and you can watch the message or you can listen to the message. But I shared how, man, this whole thing of a Streamline Church is a miracle. That we didn't create this. As a matter of fact, I told you that my prayer was when I felt like God wanting us to start a church, my prayer was sincerely this, is God, I don't want to do it, and I don't like it, and you're going to need to show me because I don't want to do this thing. And it was over a series of a couple of weeks that God just began to really speak and show some things that were incredible that I'd never seen coming, and God answered that request. And you can learn more on the series from last week. But man, there were so many things that came along the way that it was His miracle. It wasn't something that we made up. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't even something that was in my heart to do. But God gave us a heart and a passion for it. And there was a couple of things along the way I just wanted to share today that even made it more clear, and we've seen God's hand on our ministry and God's hand on this ministry called Streamline Church. It was a couple weeks in after I said I prayed and God tell me, show me, and a couple weeks span there where God was showing some things, and I called up my friend named Hector Gutierrez. He pastors Thrive Church in Elk Grove. And I called him up and I just said, hey, can we have lunch? Can we get together? Because I feel like maybe God's calling us to church plant, and I just need to talk to you. And he had planted his church. So we got together and had lunch, and he told me that he just asked me, hey, so share with me what's on your heart and what do you think God's doing? And so I'm sharing with him a little bit of frustration. I'm sharing my heart because I think God's really doing something unique. And he's sitting there and he's listening, and it just resonates with him because he had planted a church. And so he just told me, you know what, when you called me a few weeks back, he said, when you called me, there was something in my spirit that just leapt inside. And he said the reason is because about a year ago, I felt like God was telling us that we're going to be a part of a church plant. And he said, and when you called me, I felt like this is it. And I get chills now as I'm talking about this. And he said, this is it. This is what I was talking about. And so he told me this. He said, look, he said, so here's where we're at. That we want to be a part of this thing. I want to be able to walk with you through this journey and help make decisions and be there for you and kind of just be a buddy or a brother to you. Then he said, and financially, we want to give and invest in your ministry, and we just want to be a part, provide the facilities if needed, whatever it is. And that was just something that I didn't see coming, and the Lord just totally blessed that. And here's the thing, the reason why I share this is because when you're following God out of obedience, even when you don't see something or like it, God blesses it. And he blessed it. And there was another friend of mine. His name is James Seiler. He pastors Real Life Church in Galt. And it wasn't long after, that was like in April or May or so, that I was with Hector. And a couple months later, James Seiler meets with me and he says, hey, I want to meet together with you and I wanted to give you something. And so we show up and he had a trailer, a sound system, a keyboard, and a couple other things. And he says, we just want to give this to you and bless you for your ministry to start off. And that's God. You can't explain that stuff. You can't write a story like that. That's just God, and he shows himself. And I bring this up to say, this whole thing, this is God's hand. This is God's miracle. You're a part of God's miracle. And so moving forward, I just felt like this is what God has done. But now for the next X, the next 10, I believe that God's taking us to a new place to do even more ministry and to reach more people and to make a difference. And what's been really cool over the last couple of years, I've learned so much about you. I've learned about your commitment. I've learned about your generosity. I've learned about your care for people. And it came to mind and it showed itself when we were going through things like we were raising money for Mercy Calcutta. And with Mercy Calcutta, for those of you who weren't here, during this ministry time over in India. They have this ministry where they help have surgery for kids with cleft palates. They do it for free. There's a blind school. There's a nursing school. They have a hospital where they treat people for free, and it's just extensive. They're starting all these churches all over India, and they're making a huge kingdom impact. They have a private school. Kids come in for free, and they teach them, and they give them an education they couldn't get there. And so I just felt like in my heart that God was leading us to be a part of this ministry and invest and give. And so we went ahead and we launched the whole idea, and one of the representatives came out and he cast vision, and I said, Terry, I think if we had about $20,000 committed, that we would, it would just be a great victory for us starting out. And so he came, he came and he shared and cast vision, and I didn't know how Streamline Church was rolling. And we counted up all the commitments, and we had $60,000 committed. $60,000 to commit and give, in 6 months. And in that time, it's not always, usually don't hit that on par. But in 6 months, we raised over $40,000. We raised that to make a difference in the lives of people and families and children. And I seen something in you I'd never seen before. We even started this Guts campaign. That's what we called in September, where it's Guts is just simply there's a godly urgency to spread, and we wanted to spread the gospel. We wanted to reach people. We were not going to have a Friends Day. We were going to have a Friends Month. We were going to take on more missionaries, and we were just going to make a difference. And you guys gave thousands of dollars, not because I said or put pressure on or said we have to. I just simply cast the vision, and you showed your heart. And I was so blessed by that. And now going into the next 10 years, I'm just fired up because, all right, God, we've taken the hill. Lord, where's the mountain that you want us to take? And so I'm so excited about what God has planned for us. And so last week, I looked at this series of scriptures here. And we talked about Matthew 10 and how this whole thing, how Jesus explained and cast vision for, this is how the church is going to take off. This is how the church is going to make a difference. And so I want us to jump back into this scripture today in Matthew chapter 16. And this is what the focal point of last week is that Jesus was talking about helping us understand that it's the revelation of God and the confession of man, that's what he uses. The fact that God has revealed himself to you and that you have confessed that he's Lord and Savior and now you've given your life to him, that's what he's saying. That's what's going to advance the gospel and make a difference in this world. And so here is Jesus. He's asking his disciples. He's saying, well, hey, we got all these people hanging out with us. What are they saying about me? Who do they say that I am? And so they're throwing out these names and different things. And so he turns to them, and then this is a conversation he has with them. In Matthew 16, 15 through 19, he said to them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter replied, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. You are the Christ, the Messiah, who is coming to save the world. And Jesus answered him. He said, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, which is simply, blessed are you, son of Jonah. For flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. The gates of hell cannot stop the work of God. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. He's telling them, look, we have all authority to go and be the church, that we become transformed in our minds and in our hearts. And he's given us a new mission and a new purpose to go and share what he has done in us, to share with other people. And he's saying, look, this is awesome. Not even hell and the devil himself can stop what I'm going to do through you. And he says, and you have the kingdom of heaven, the backing of all the kingdom behind you to go and make a difference in this world. Now, how many of you have a passport? You have traveled outside of the country and you have one of these, few of you? Now, I've been able to, it's been fun to be able to go to other countries, whether it is to be able to go on vacation. Someone say, man, all right, good. Or even just had opportunities to go and do ministry, India, Jamaica, Haiti, and just some different places like that. I've been able to go to Israel and have these great experiences. But the truth is, if I don't have a passport, I'm not going anywhere. If I want to get out of this country, I have to have my passport, and I certainly have to have my passport to get back in. And it's something that this is what makes the difference. This is what identifies me as a U.S. citizen when I go to another country. And this is what gives me permission. And here we have from Jesus, he gives us a passport. He gives us permission to go and make a difference. And he doesn't just say, just right here, right now, you need a passport to be able to get out of the country to go around the world. And so look at this passport and what it looks like in Mark 16:15. Jesus said to his followers, go everywhere in the world. Everyone say everywhere. Everywhere. Go everywhere in the world and tell the good news to everyone. Everywhere and everyone. We never stop moving. We never stop and say, well, that's enough. Because he's given us a permission and a passport to continue to reach and love and give and meet needs of more and more people. When I was in India, there were some posts, some pictures that we were putting on, and there was one comment by somebody in a post that said, well, how in the world can you be over there helping other people when we have enough problems here of our own? And my answer was simply this: it's not about either or. It's both and. We do it here in our community and in our city and in our nation. And we do it around the world because he said, go everywhere into all the world. We never say no to this, but yes to this. We don't go either way. We just go wherever we have the opportunity. Wherever God has given us a passport, that's where we go. Because of his deliverance that he's given me in my life. Because he has redeemed me. Because he has changed me. Because he has given me purpose. Because he has given me a mission. Because he has healed me in my heart. Because he has made all things new. The old is gone. The new has come. Because he has done these things for me. That is the passport. That is the permission. That is what he wants me to do, is to go and share this and not be limited. Not be restricted. You can say amen. That's okay. I'm not going to get upset at you. No. But he's given us that. And today, before I even go any further, I don't know who's here today, and you came in through the doors and you just kind of feel beat up this morning. Or maybe you feel like you have some confusion in your heart. Or maybe you just feel like you failed, or maybe even sometimes we feel like, why would God even want me? Why would God even want to love me? Why would God even give me another chance? That's what we have in the good news. That Jesus sees past everything just to come into our life and give us a new life in Christ. And that's why we share the good news. And here's the important thing. You and I are we're like missionaries. We're like missionaries. We're like ambassadors. That's why I want us to get to this today, is as we become, they believe. As you and I become, they believe. As you and I become agents of hope, they begin to believe. As you and I become Jesus with skin on, they believe. As you and I meet needs and those who don't have anywhere to go and they're destitute and they're in poverty, as we become the answer, they believe in the power of a risen Jesus that has hope for their life. But it takes us becoming that. And here is Jesus saying, look, I'm going to go and I'm going to come and you're going to make a difference in this world. And hell can't stop it. I've given you authority. As a matter of fact, I've given you authority in all of heaven. And then he says something that may not make much sense to us, but he says, whatever you bind on earth is going to be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth is going to be loosed in heaven. And that comes from, that crowd knew what that meant. Because the Jewish leaders at that time, they had, for binding and loosing, it stood for simply forbidding and permitting. They had the authority, they had the right to forbid as spiritual leaders, as Jewish leaders, to forbid what is wrong and have the rules and those things. And then they have the permission to permit things that were right and give approval to it. Jesus comes and he says, because of the revelation of God and the power that is within the church and the confession and the faith that you've placed in me, he's saying, look, I'm giving you the authority to forbid what is wrong, to come in and take a stand against what is wrong and bring it to an end. And then with what is right and what brings life and what brings hope, I'm giving you the authority to loose that. And that's what our mission is for other people. And so I just want to, in a simple way, just show us how we are to bind, how we are to loose, how we're to forbid, and how we are to permit. And the first one is simply this, is that we have to end what's wrong. We have to put to an end what's wrong. Jesus put an end to what's wrong. There was a woman caught in adultery by some guys. I don't know what they were doing, trying to, peeping toms or whatever, how they found out, I don't know. But they had their own issues, right? But they chose to take this woman and go and bring her to Jesus and tell all these things why it's wrong and judgmental. And Jesus was able to stop it because it was wrong. And he stopped it and gave her hope and gave her new life. Jesus was able to, when people were rejecting lepers because their skin was just gross and their skin was falling apart and there was sores all over their body and they were outcasts, and they said, you can't come in our community. Jesus was the one who went to be with them. As a matter of fact, he would touch them and their skin would become like a baby's skin. When there were sinners and people didn't want to have anything to do with those who were doing wrong, Jesus went and he was with them. And he was there, and they called him, you're a friend of sinners. And Jesus was probably like, yeah, you're right, I am, because this is wrong, and we have got to end this. And we have an opportunity here at Streamline. If we're going to get around the world, then my heart is that some things that we're going to do, that they would dig at your heart, and they would really compel you to say, I can't stay here. I can't just stay in my community and what's comfortable. I have to have a global view of the world. And so coming up this fall, we're going to do something like we did with Calcutta Mercy and being able to reach India and be able to send resources. What we're going to do is we're going to sponsor and be a part of a ministry, and we're going to cast some vision for that on how you and I get to be a part from where we are right here. And so I want you to check out this video, just a promo of a ministry that you and I are going to partner with and be a part of. It's called Project Rescue. What if we looked at all of these girls like they were our own daughters? They're being shipped around to other countries. They're being taken from a country where they know this language, and they're put in another country where they don't know the language at all. There's no hope to escape, other than people reaching out and people giving resources. And so we're going to have an opportunity when we go into the fall that we're going to bring our resources together. You know, if it was your daughter, you would be like, whatever I got to give, whatever I've got to do, and we're going to make a difference over in Europe, in the countries that are there at Project Rescue. Lori and I, in May, we're going to be going to Spain, and they're hosting some pastors that come. They're going to take us out at night because it's that blatant on how these girls are trafficked and what's going on and the safe homes that they have. And so that we're going to know exactly where it's going and how we can make a difference. But church, hear me. This is wrong. It's wrong. And until we become, they don't believe, they don't know that there's hope, and this is wrong, so we have to bind it, and then we have to loose what is right. He says you bind on earth, and then you can loose on earth, and it looses in heaven. And I want us to just simply get this in our spirit, that we launch what's right. That we launch what's right. Here's Jesus. He's just given a testimony, and he's shared his story. He's shared the salvation message. He is speaking to the masses. Over 5,000 people are there, and they have no food. Jesus provides and gives, and he's there in the present to help and fill the needs. He comes, and there's the woman with the issue of blood, and she hasn't been able to stop bleeding for 12 years. And because Jesus was present, she reached out and touched the hem of his garment, and she was healed and she was made whole because Jesus was present. You and I become Jesus, and we're present when we're there where needs are, and we're meeting needs, not with just sending money or sending resources, but even going beyond that and being there in a physical way to where we actually serve and we provide. And my hope is, I really hope, I've been really praying that what we're about to share in just a minute here is that it would grip your heart, and that you and I would feel like, I can't stay here. I've got to go. I've got to get outside of my world. I've got to get outside of the U.S. so that I can go and I can be Jesus to people who don't have hope at all. And so I invited a friend of mine. His name is Jeff Duvall, and he's got a ministry. And part of their ministry is going down into Mexico and building homes. And I'm not going to steal all his thunder, but he's going to come and just share about this ministry and how we can be a part of that. Would you welcome Jeff Duvall, please?
Thanks, Pastor Dave. Hey, it is awesome to be here with you this morning. And I just says, listen to Pastor Dave talk this morning. I was just thinking about this call that God has on us. You know, Jesus in Mark 16, he says, "Go and tell everybody about me everywhere." But he actually expands on that in Matthew 26 when he says, "All authority on heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, you go and you make disciples of all nations." Pastor Dave talked about the passport that he has. And it's interesting because I've seen passports from around the world. I have a passport, and it's issued by a country. You don't get to travel on your own. Just try to hand them a note that says, "My name is Dave," and it doesn't get you anywhere. But under the authority of a nation that says, this guy's okay to travel, that's when you get to go somewhere. And Jesus says, listen, the authority that you're being sent with, that's me. You don't have anything on your own. They don't let you on a plane without me. I am sending you, and that's why. But he says, listen, I'm not just sending you just to tell everybody the good news. That's where it starts. I'm calling you to make disciples, and not just of people, but to change nations. And I asked myself, what does that process of transformation really look like? I've had the opportunity to travel to speak to people from 43 states and 40 countries. I've been all over the world. But there's this little place that I found in 2008 that absolutely transformed my heart. My dad grabbed me and he said, "Hey, I need you to come with me on this trip." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, my church is doing a missions trip. I said, "Dad, I've taken thousands of people around the world. I lead people on those kind of trips. I don't go." He said, "No, I need you to come with me." And he took me about 200 miles south of San Diego in a community in rural Baja, California, where about maybe 90,000 people live over a 60-mile stretch of highway. From Ensenada to La Paz, it's about 615 miles. And in that stretch, there's one paved highway, 2 lanes the entire way for 615 miles. And people live in strips along that stretch of highway. And in this community, the San Quintin Valley, it's like Central California. And in America, we talk about the work Americans won't do. Well, in Mexico, they have the work Mexicans won't do. And so they bring up Oaxacan Indians from southern Mexico, people that average about 5 feet tall and that work in the fields there 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, 50, 75, maybe sometimes $1 an hour, 50 cents, 75 or $1 an hour, and that are just living in absolute abject poverty. And when I went there, I was so touched with this idea of what if we could actually look at what does it look like to not just share the gospel, but to transform something. And we have seen God do amazing things in the last 10 years as I've taken people from all over the United States, some of them from churches, some of them are not even. I even took a group of lawyers once. I said, we'll take anybody, even lawyers. And I told this group of lawyers, they came from this law firm, and I said, listen, I have promised my friends back in the United States If I could get an entire van just full of lawyers, no legal aids, no paralegals, just lawyers, I'll drive it off the side of a cliff and make the world a better place. If you're laughing in this room, you're not a lawyer. And if you are a lawyer, I'm sorry that you're a lawyer. But we began to see things transform. We've built 80 homes and schools, brought in tons of clothing, tons of food. We begin to see amazing things happen in that place as ordinary people have come and said, listen, I don't know what to do, but if you tell me what to do, I'll be part of a transformation and transforming families. And we're not just trying to create a system of poverty there that when just try to fix things a little bit, but actually bring transformation. I think about all the toilets that we've brought in from, I don't know if you know, but about 40% of the world lives without a flushable toilet. And after food and basic clothing and having a roof over your head, the next thing you would want is a toilet that you could flush. There's some very practical reasons for that. And I have delivered outhouses in just place after place after place. But I'll never forget one time, a little girl, we had a group come in from Minnesota, a group of students, and we were there building the home. When I showed up, the first thing that you realize that you might need if you have a group of people they're building is a place for them to use the restroom. So what they had there was just a hole in the ground and 3 sticks and some plastic around it. So I said, all right, we're gonna get them a restroom anyway. Let's get it out there. So first day I had this restroom brought out. And the family was grieving. They had an 8-year-old, they had a 5-year-old, but they had just lost their 3-year-old. And so as a family, it was just in a very difficult situation, living in a shack, just cooking from a hole in the ground where they would put sticks in and just to be able to heat up something. But this beautiful little 5-year-old girl was there when they dropped off the outhouse, and I said, thank God, because the other one looked bad. It was just a pallet with a hole in it and a bucket, and I thought, somebody's going to fall through. I'll be sued by some American somewhere. But when they opened the door to that bathroom, I hadn't ordered it this way. I don't speak enough Spanish to do that. There was kind of a regular-sized one, but then there was a little one. There was like a baby potty, you know. And so when they opened the door, this little girl, she looked at it, and she said, hey, what's that for? And she turned around to me in Spanish, and I said, para tú. I said, it's for you. And I didn't really order it for her. I just thought, that'd be fun to say. And she turned around and looked again, and when she turned back around, she went like this. And tears started to roll down her eyes because she thought I had thought of her and that she would have her own toilet in that place. It's not often you see transformation happening because of toilets. There was a guy that we were building for, and he had 2 goats. And we asked him, we said, what are the names of your goats, Gonzalo? He said, one is named Lunch. We said, what's the other one? He said, it's named Dinner. And every day we would just show up because they would try to make us lunch, and we'd be like, okay, the 2 goats are still here, right? They had just a little tiny house that was just built out of a garage door and some other pieces. And they had 2 teenage boys, and we dedicated their house, and it was awesome. We came back 3 months later, and I remember that when we had dedicated the home with this family, I said, what God has done for you, he's calling you to do. You're here to be a light. I said, and I don't know where you're at in your faith, but I can tell you this, to whom much has been given, much will be required. And we came back a couple months later to visit this family, and we were talking to them, and we said, what happened to your old house? It wasn't much, but you can imagine if you had a family of 4 into a 400-square-foot house, you might want some storage or something. He pointed across the field, and there was his old house. He said, remember what you said? We said, yeah. He said, we didn't have much. He said, we probably needed that spot, but that family had nothing, so we dismantled that house and we built it for them ourselves. When you start realizing that transformation can happen in the simplest ways. We found a ministry that was in that area. Is like an 85-year-old lady from Canada who just showed up and found out that there were people being trafficked in that community and told the Mexican government, I will take them in. Pretty soon, she had it is crazy how many people that they were bringing to her. She told me about going to Tijuana and picking up a lady who they'd put on a bus with 4 children, no diapers, 2 of them were still in diapers, no food, no money, nothing, 22 hours from Mexico City. And she picked them up, and it was just people along the way that were buying them Cokes to make that trip, and people were buying them diapers and cloths along the way so she could clean up her children. When we showed up there, there was just 4 RV trailers, like the kind that you might give away because they don't work so good anymore, and 1 shack. And she had 27 kids and 9 moms in those places. And we said, what if we built a community for moms as they were getting healthy to come out of domestic violence and trafficking and all those situations? And we would call it Hope Village. And it's a place that we could put those families in that place and continue to help them and to start businesses and help them work and figure it out and help them to save some money of their own so that they could, after 3 to 5 years, own a home of their own. See, that's what transformation can look like. And the amazing thing is that there are the things that we agree on. When Pastor Dave talked about ending what's wrong, a lot of people don't agree about what's wrong. But there are some things that we all know are wrong. We all know that a 5-year-old girl should have a safe place to go to the bathroom. We all know that a family with 2 teenagers should be able to teach their boys not what it's like just to receive, but to give away and find purpose and dignity. We all know that children should grow up, no matter what their mom has been through, with a chance at a future. It's funny because the vice president of Mexico and that little place that we call Hope Village on the side of a hill with an ocean view, the vice president showed up. We just had the first of 9 homes there. And the mayor of Ensenada said, how many more homes are you building here? We said 5 more. He said, yeah, I'll pay for the next one. And his brother was there, and he said, and I'll pay for the one after that. Because there are some things that we can all agree about. The opportunities that we have, you and me as Christians. Pastor Dave and I were talking. He said, listen, we want to be a part of what you're doing. What can we do? I said, give me anybody you've got. Bring them down. We'll feed them the world's greatest tacos. We'll take care of them. We'll build a house for a family in 3.5 days. And so one of the last weeks of June, actually the 17th through the 23rd, if I have the dates right, I think it's in your bulletin, we are taking a group of people from this church to really change things. And why? Because we want people to know that there's a God that cares about them. And the only way that they know that is when you and I show them that we care. See, that's not just a feeling, that's real. And I'll just end with this story. In 2008, my dad said, come down and check this out. So I sat there like some of you that will go with us in the middle of nowhere saying, what are we doing? We're building a home. How is this going to work? You can't build a house in 3.5 days. And there was a mom with 9 kids, and she was just living in a shack. As a matter of fact, I have a picture. That's her shack right there on the screen. Can you imagine 10 people living in that place? And 8 kids were running around, especially this one little guy named David. He's 5 years old. He was coming out. He would hit a nail, bend it over. We'd pull it out. He'd hit another one, bend it over, pull it out. We were running out of nails. He bent over so many nails. But after a little bit, we said, hey, we're only counting 8 kids. Where's the 9th kid? And she brought out a little baby boy. His name was Estefan. And his eyes were glassy, and clearly something had gone wrong. We found out that during the birthing process, he'd probably been deprived of oxygen. There's no doctor there, so nobody knew exactly. And he was blind and he was deaf. We took him down to the local clinic. They said, we don't know. There's not that much we can do. But we held him. We let him know that he was loved that week. He didn't go very long without being held that entire week. And somebody told us, they said, most moms in this situation probably would have smothered him or just let him starve to death. But this mom has kept this baby boy alive despite the shame that she feels from the other tribal people around her. And when we dedicated the house and kids were jumping up and down on beds, and I was so excited, I grabbed a group of people and I said, we are going to do this. We'd taken 5 or 6 people, 1,000 people around the world at that point. I said, we're going to do something. We're going to be part of transforming a community. And when I took them back 10 days later, we sat down with this family, and I realized I found this home. I sat down in a bucket, and I realized I didn't speak enough Spanish. They didn't speak enough English. We sat there awkwardly, but somebody came by after a little while later, and I said, hey, can you get baby Estefan, bring baby Estefan out? And they said, baby Estefan died 4 days ago. 1 week after we left, that young man had died. And we also found out something else. He was not a baby at all. He was the 5-year-old twin of David, who had helped us build that house all week, bending those nails over. But they told us the story. They said that they had taken him down to the clinic after he had died, and they weren't sure what was going on. And there was a French doctor there, and he said, your son has passed, but I'm going to pay for the funeral for your son. And after the funeral, that doctor was talking to 5-year-old David, and he said, I'm sorry about your twin brother. And David said, yeah, thank you. And he said, hey, you said, I was just making conversation. He said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And David looked at him and said, I want to be a doctor. And he thought, that's cute. This kid lives without running water on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Probably not going to be a doctor. But he said, he asked him, he said, David, why do you want to be a doctor? And he said, because little boys like my brother shouldn't die because nobody cares about us. And I thought, no one should ever feel that. As long as you and I have a passport to do good, to launch good, as long as you and I have that opportunity and that ability, there should not be a human being on planet Earth in all those nations where we're called to make disciples that feels like no one cares about me, because you and I know that there is a God that cares. He has transformed your life. He's transformed our life, and he had never intended for that to end with us. We have an opportunity. There's an old story. It's probably not true, but I'll tell it anyway. About two bricklayers. They're building St. Paul's Cathedral in London, and a bishop walks up and he says, hey, what are you doing? And one of them says, what do you think I'm doing? I'm putting bricks together. I'm a bricklayer. And he asks the other guy, he says, what are you doing? He says, I'm building a cathedral. You get a choice. And I tell people when they come down, I say, we're not building houses. We are going to, in my lifetime, end poverty in a community. In just the next couple of weeks, we'll finish our purchase of 8 acres where we're going to build a summer camp where we'll bring in kids week after week after week, teenagers who on average drop out of school at 14 years old. We're going to continue to build homes for single moms, and we're going to do it in communities across that region, because we want to see transformation happen. I tell people, you're not building a home, you're not pounding nails. We are ending poverty, and we are setting an example for an entire country of how this can be done when the people of God are released to do good, to launch something and end what we all know is wrong. There's a lot of things we don't agree about, but we can all agree that there is good to be done, and you and I can do it. Listen, I'm going to have a table in the back if you want to come talk to me. I know there's some information in the bulletin. I promise you, if you come along with us, this will be your opportunity to see something incredible happen. Thank you, Pastor Dave.
Amen. Thank you.